All right, let's continue with questions. We only got a couple more minutes in here. Any questions left? 2 questions, huh? Really? That's all we got. Make some shit up now. Come on. Make it. Yo, you get another one? All right, let me get her first because I like to play favorites.
Thanks. So kind of what hooked me on the show was the gay thing. But what kept me coming back and has got me sitting here now is every other thing that the show has covered between adoption, abuse, drug abuse, cheerleaders bitching. So kind of what I wanted to know, like as a writer, like how is that you kind of get to, you were writing about everything. And two, for the rest of you, like as a supporting cast, you guys had like great stuff to work with. So like how is that for all of you?
Well, I'll say this, when Tommy first called me, and my writing partner is not here, he has twin baby girls, so that probably explains why he's not here right now, but he sends his love. Tommy called me up and said, hey, I want to do this show, and he showed me this pilot presentation, which was called, at the time, a little bit of trivia, Finding Out, which I love that title, but then I heard South of Nowhere, and I was like, okay, that's really, you gotta go with that. But he started to talk about, he told me a story that he imparted to you guys, and I'm glad he did, about his friend. And he said, look, I want to write a story about people, and they're about, it sounds obvious, but just, it's, some are gay, some are straight, some are, tolerant, some are intolerant. And as a writer, I happen to be straight, but I was really compelled, and certainly had a lot of gay friends and straight friends, and it was just an opportunity to write about just finding yourself and finding that that truth that Danzo spoke about. And when you get to see, it's one thing to kind of write it and not know if anybody's going to respond to it, not know if you're doing it right, not knowing, and then you get it up on its feet with these guys and all the other actors, and you're kind of like, we've really got something here. This is really going to work. This is really going to work. And then the show will premiere, and you're like, oh my God, it's not going to work. Oh my God, what's going to happen? And it really found an audience. And I know this is a rambling way of answering your question, but it was just, it was unique. It was a unique time in my career because I was writing on One Tree Hill at the time, and it was great because I loved that show. But when Tommy called us up and said, hey, we want you to write a couple of episodes, I was like, fantastic, because we have to do so many things that no other shows could touch, no other shows would touch. And it was just a very special part of my career, and still a show that people, other writers, come up to me out of the blue and are like, you wrote on South of Nowhere, and I'm like, yeah, you've heard of South of Nowhere? Oh my God, yeah. And I mean, it really is, there are a lot more fans out there than I certainly thought. Sorry, I'm rambling. I love the show, and it was really just a special part of my career as a writer, and just, I miss it. I really do. I really do. So, off to these.
I think to sum up what Chad just said, yes.
My thing was, like, I know, the main crux of the show was a relationship between, Ashley and Spencer. The thing that I really loved when I first got on was the dynamic between like me, Austin and Denzel. Like we had some really great scenes. There was actually a few scenes got cut. Like one scene where Clay was coming back from his, we had like a weed smoking scene that was hilarious. That was so true because he went through some, traumatic. He would have came back and probably tried to blow off some steam, and I think Asha, called him after and was so disappointed in him or something like that. But I feel like it did things in terms of, to me being a black actor, like they don't write well for African Americans sometimes in Hollywood. And I feel like they had 3 characters that were African American that were all different. They had this different, dynamic about it. And I was really, excited to tackle that. In addition to all the other stuff. But it was a special time for me. Like it was one of my first big things, and you know, it's such a blessing to meet, you know what I'm saying, everybody and be so, you know what I'm saying, surprised not only that I'm working with these, you know what I'm saying, talented people, but, you know, people that have great, great hearts. Like, you know, I've spent time with Asha a bunch, and Gabby and Valerie, and, you know what I'm saying, Danzo, so it's like, you know, it really does feel like an extended family. So when I see him, it's like, you know, it's kind of cool. I hope we can get together a little more. But, you know, it was a really special show, and I'm glad that it hit other people, you know, the same way it hit us. It's a little bit different, but, you know, it's the same thing, you know, and that's why we're all here. You know, it was fun. It was fun. I want to see that weed smoking scene, though. I haven't seen it, man. It's a bunch of bullshit. It was fun.
I guess, right, the N Network was notorious for cutting a lot of stuff for all of us, right? Like, they wouldn't let the girls, like Ashley and Spencer, like, if they were going to be touching each other, like, they couldn't be within, like, 5 feet from a bed, and, like, just weird rules. So you imagine, like, you shoot a brilliant, you know, scene that's very relevant to high school youth today, you know, smoking weed, and they were going to cut it. As much as it was the voice, they kind of, you know, toned it down a little bit, like, had we got the chance, I think, to do it all over again, we'd like to go to, you know, a network that allowed some, you know, vulgarity. I guess you could. Showtime, right? Showtime. Let it hang out, baby. Let it hang out. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Val. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm good at this.
For me, I think playing a villain is always fun. It's, you know, the person everybody loves to hate. I was scared, especially once there was such an impact, because I was like, oh my gosh, like this. You know, like we said earlier, it was our first, I'll just speak for myself, it was my first series. So, I was so naive to what it could become, and so once it came out, I was like, oh wow. So I was nervous that people were really going to hate on me as Valerie as a person, but Nancy Lee, and I mean all the writers, wrote some funny lines for me, and it was just really funny to play and just joke. And I mean, I'll never forget the one episode that was my favorite, that I was scared, was the paintball episode. That was the film. But then, like, when Madison, like, takes off her cheerleading uniform and, like, walks out in the, like, hall, and then, like, we have that thing, and you're like, what? Oh my god. Like, your uniform's dirty. Things like that, moments like that, just made it just awesome. And I feel like you need that character in every show, so I was really happy to play it, scared, but thankful to you guys to not, you know, take it to heart and really still open up to me. I was just really blown away. I was like, you guys are just amazing. So that was Madison for you.
Personally, it was definitely quite the experience playing Glenn Carlin. The thing is, it's funny because on the show I was the older character, but in real life I was actually the youngest of all the cast members, which was sort of weird. But so I had just come out of high school and I went onto the show, and where I played like a golden boy high schooler, and I was like, oh, this is great, easy, perfect, sweet, I can do this no problem in my sleep. And then the second season they were like, by the way, you're a drug addict. And so that was a little bit of a transition for me. I hadn't ever really explored that side of myself or my life. So it was definitely, having incredible material to work with definitely made it possible. You know, Nancy Lee and all these writers and Tom and everybody really brought depth to characters that maybe are so stereotypical. You know, the golden boy, the cheerleader, the whatever. It was an incredible privilege to get to work with talented people. And it is a shame that the show got canceled when it did, but I think that it was sort of a stepping stone for other networks and other series to see, like, wow, you can make compelling television with real stories of real people. So, you know, it was awesome. That's all you can say, really, is it was just an incredible experience.
For me, I took this role as Sherry Pena because she was everything that I'm not, which I thought that would be really fun to play someone. You know, you're playing pretend, and she was everything I'm not. She was Latina. I'm not Latina. She was a cheerleader. I hate cheerleaders. No, not really. But I was never a cheerleader. That just wasn't my thing. I was always like the kind of weird kid. Like if you saw, you know, the first season when you first meet Sherry, she's got hot pink hair. They didn't give me hot pink hair. I had it to begin with, and I wasn't going to change it. And they were like, can you dye it? I was like, no, my hair's hot pink. Because who I am as a person, I was just completely different from Sherry. And the one other thing is that Sherry was a follower, which I'm not used to. I'm definitely not a follower. And Val and I, we were bullies. And you didn't see that much on TV. They really didn't have characters like that at that time. And it's such a big deal now. Like, everything's so, like, you know, everyone's doing these anti-bullying things and talking about being bullied, and these kids are committing suicide and whatever. It's just like, man, I wish, no, it's true. And this show was one of the first shows to touch on bullying, you know, and you got to see a deeper side of the two of us, you know, showing that we had our own issues, and that's why we were bullying these lesbians. And it wasn't really because they were lesbians, it's just that they were an easy target. And that's what they built our characters on. That's why we were the mean girls, because we found girls that were easy targets, and they were the outsiders. So I thought that was interesting, and that's why I liked playing this character. The other interesting thing is that when I left the show, I did another show for CW, but then I did 2 other shows, one 90210 and another one called Greek. And it's so funny hearing Tommy talk about how people didn't want this show and people were scared. And then after this show aired, all these other shows started stealing from our show. Like, did you guys notice that? Like, all these other shows, like, I felt like I was reliving South of Nowhere. Like, being on Greek, I was once again the mean girl, but then they brought in a lesbian, and I was like, what? And then, and 90210 was the same way. They did the same thing, starting with the very first, I think, episode. It started like our very first episode, and they had the adopted son, and they stole from us. Right? So, but anyway, but to get back to the question, that's why I joined this cast, because it was just a different topic, and it was my character was a different person from who I was, and also, this wasn't my first series, and once we started, it was a different experience for me than any other show I've been on, because the cast was awesome. Like, Val and I clicked instantly. I think everybody pretty much clicked, but most of my scenes were with Val, but everybody clicked, and we were a family. We really were, and I never had that with any other show before, and I really haven't had that since. Like, we bonded over this, and it was just such an incredible experience. I don't think any of us can really explain or express just how amazing it was for so many different reasons. But anyway.